Okay, we're going to be back with part two with Danny Day. Danny, we had just left off where you were joining the FBI, or the FBI was asking you
Right,
to get involved. So let's take it from there.
right. They asked me if I wasn't interested in joining, but they asked me if I would, go ahead and join, just follow them around, report back to them. No big deal.
Okay,
Just,
and at this point, what do you think this is going to be?
to me, I just like, I'd heard their conspiracy theories, and I thought I'd just report back to them, and you know, go see their, go find their terrorist training grounds that they were looking for.
Right.
I thought I was just.
Were you taking
Hey.
this at all? I mean, I'm sure
I,
you were
uh,
taking.
it-
I'm sure you were taking this seriously, but how seriously?
We were armed, and anytime you're armed around anybody else, I mean,
Yeah.
I've carried concealed for 20 years,
Right.
and uh, when they were talking about that, what they want, how much hate they had for the Samoans,
Mhm.
it was kind of sketchy, but I wasn't too worried about it. I was confident in myself. It's like, I'm a redneck, so I
Yeah.
look, these guys, I can talk the talk, and so I was like, yeah, I give you a good story to tell my grandkids
Sure.
someday.
Sure.
So I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and I started out just doing that, going on surveillance with them, and they
How did you get welcomed in?
they actually they have like a little patching ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a motorcycle gang, but not as that they kind of have that mentality as a
Yeah,
they
Like the
could
mob,
go
like
they could go break the law,
Yeah.
they said claim to be patriots, but do this for the country, and they're 90% talk, but you never know when.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
especially
when
when
we
everybody has
found
a
out.
trigger finger, and
Yeah.
anyway, I just dove in, I go in myself, and people, they people vouched for me. I had people vouch for me. They knew me. Um, they knew some of my family members, and they're like, yeah, he'd be pretty good. I mean, I was yeah, I used to be a probation officer. I used to, this, and they welcomed me in. They ended up having me be their vetting officer to vet new recruits.
Mhm.
They use Facebook a lot and then they ended up making me their intelligence officer.
And what did that entail?
Basically, for them, if it would have been the show,
You were
You actually go-
automatically the smartest one there.
basically all I did is get on Google what's happening that day, and
Right.
5 minutes, and they thought I spent hours, and
All right.
but and it wasn't my fault they chose an FBI informant to do their
What'd they
vetting
do?
officer, so that made I could. If I seen people real radical, who didn't want them in to charge,
Sure.
so I could just brush them off, and we followed them around for probably like 9 months, doing different surveillance, doing field training. We'd have field training exercises.
What did that consist of?
Go out, shoot guns. Different scenarios. If the UN came in to take the guns away, just going shooting, and a little bit of prepping. There's some preppers there, and
Where were these at? Were these just out in the middle of nowhere?
out in
or was it?
there was different people had different land out in the county, and Dodge Lake, and different places.
Right. Did this involve like any buildings or anything?
It was mainly out.
It was
But
just
people
out
would
in
set up, they'd set up targets,
Okay.
like human targets, and you ran a little obstacle course, and people were just like I said, like gun safety. My dad drilled that in me, and I drilled it in my son. And these guys would. There was a guy that he had never shot a gun, and he was shooting a gun that hadn't been shot in 20 years. He was new to the militia, and they were in side by side. One guy shoots a rifle, the other guy nailed down, shoots the pistol, he pulls it out of his holster. It goes up in the air, and I'm like, "You can just kill this guy."
Right.
He catches it in the air, turn around, and shoots it, and it fires. And I'm like, I thought there was going to be a dead guy out there. And I'm like, these idiots,
Right.
That's why I come back and report to the FBI. These guys are idiots.
Yeah,
Like,
this is probably not a big threat going on
so,
here.
anyway, things kind of died down. I mean, they were still doing surveillance, but winter came and they were kind of dropping off. Meantime, I was getting in touch with other militias across the state and the country. They're calling me, and
Were they discovering who you were, or
yeah,
did you
well,
reach out to them?
but a little both.
Okay.
And I was getting quite a reputation as a hardcore militia member.
Mm-hmm.
I talked like they did, say whatever,
Right.
agreed. Then I was recruited one of the national leader of the 3%ers. He offered me a job as a leader of the Kansas 3%ers.
No kidding.
Yeah,
And where is he from?
he was from Colorado,
Okay.
but he was the national leader.
Right.
And I'm like, I was joking around with the FBI. I was like, man, let me take the job. That'd be cool on my resume, because nothing serious had happened. And I was
Right.
like, man, just let me take it. And they're like, no,
Right.
you can't have an FBI source as a militia leader.
Right.
Then they said, well, maybe you could, but no.
Yeah,
no.
that would probably
Yeah. So anyway,
Now, how long was this taking for you to get ingratiated? Before the other guys came
right,
in the
and
phone, but
this
how
was
long?
about a 9-month period,
Okay.
and I learned quite a bit about militias and their
What surprised you?
just their hate, and their conspiracy, how they believe conspiracy theories so much, and watching Alex Jones on YouTube.
Yeah.
All these YouTube conspiracies. There's tunnels under Walmart connected, and
Right.
that was part of my intel. They had these tunnels everywhere where they were going to either put people on, the UN was going to come in, and Obama was going to overturn the election. Trump got elected, and the UN was going to come in and take everybody's guns away and put them in, gas them, and they start thinking, how do they get how are they going to get air? Yeah, how do they get air to all these tunnels and stuff?
Right.
And
Right.
somebody was like, I wonder if oil rigs going up and down, oil pumps. I wonder if they're really pumping oxygen down there. And what about these giant windmills? What if they're pumping oxygen down there? And they could probably just put gas in there to gas people if they wanted to. And they're like, damn, why don't you go out and investigate that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'll fill it. I can check that out.
Sure.
I got some connections.
Yeah. The one I heard was the Getty Museum out in California. That's on top of the hill.
Oh,
Was that underneath that hill is a whole big open thing, and there's a tunnel that goes from the Getty Museum to Denver, Colorado.
really? Yeah.
That's the one I heard.
Well,
So-
yeah. I mean, they had video on YouTube. These trucks driving through these tunnels.
Uh-huh.
They had proof.
Yeah.
So
It's probably old Die Hard movie. So
yeah. And anyway, I was like, so of course
So you got to go check these things out.
Well, I said I did.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one of the things the defense attorney said. You lied to my clients. Like, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I got.
How else am I getting? I actually later I felt bad about lying, but I got over it pretty quick. But yeah, that was the vetting and intel part.
Right.
if it would have been, something serious, like, yeah, I would have, or I would argue against them like that. I had to keep my persona up.
Sure.
And I had to keep myself valuable to them
Mhm.
because, if I wasn't no use, they don't,
Yeah.
the other guys, they want to give, positions and, um, I'd look stuff up, they believed in the flat world. And
Flat Earth
flat Earth,
Society
yeah,
guys?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, I was just ridiculous.
Well, now wonder you were in line to get promoted so
Yeah,
fast.
yeah. I mean, I could have moved up. Yeah, and I was, I was really connecting different militias that were really hardcore,
Right.
and we were able to. They were able to. The FBI in other parts of the country and even parts of the state were able to. They made several arrests, not for like the bombing plat, but other things that they were doing that had me as a source for the FBI.
What kind of things were they doing? Can you talk
Arms,
about that?
automatic weapons, felons. They were militia members.
Right.
Then get into surveillance and armed surveillance in Wichita at the mosque, big mosque there, and but they got a permit to do it, but
They got a permit to survey. The militia gets.
Yeah, from they didn't say they were militia, but from the to protest.
Oh, okay.
They were having a speaker who was actually known to raise a terrorist wish list. Pompeo, who was our representative at the time, he got involved. I had like 2 steps from like Pompeo, and it was in Wichita Eagle, and he went in there telling them, this was right before Easter, and
What year was this?
2015.
Okay.
Or six, it might have been 16.
Okay.
There's
Early 60s.
You can Google it or something.
Okay.
Something. Yeah, probably early 16.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a lot of different things that I wasn't just.
Now, what was
following.
Pompeo doing? What was Pompeo saying?
Pompeo he just came in and was telling them, no, he was a suspected terrorist, and he was a fundraiser, and he was on the guy that was speaking at the mosque. I had no idea who he was.
Okay.
All I knew was they were having militia members. They bought a permit to do a peaceful protest, but they were supposed to. It was right next to across from the church, actually, in Wichita. It's a great big mosque. I've seen it. It's anyway. But all the militia members were told, bring your sidearm and have your long gun, your AR-15,
Right.
or AK, whatever, in the truck, in your car with you. Bring it just in case, And that's what concerned me. I didn't just go and rat, if they were
Sure.
doing something stupid, but that was a real concern when they, so they contacted their counterparts in Wichita, and they somehow
Interesting.
Pompeo found out, and people were protesting that, and they stopped him from speaking, and stopped the militias from potentially doing anything.
Right.
So there, a lot of little things like that that I did when in between working with these guys. But then eventually it just got, it was like, every time I'd go out with them, I'd report to the FBI, and then when we were done talking, I'd report and debrief me and everything. And
Okay, how did that work? How were you able to go with the FBI or how did you meet them?
there's different ways. We'd have places around town. They'd pull pull up somewhere and I'd get in with them. They'd drive around. I'd be in the back seat and I'd tell them. Sometimes I'd go to their office, just go in the back door.
Really?
Yeah, that was towards the end
Oh.
and more
And at
dangerous.
this point, we're not talking about anything like massively dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
And this is just you're kind of like
They
we'll just-
they put the leader of that militia. He was pretty radical, and they even when they were talking about originally about the fire, he was like, they ended up putting him on the no fly list. He didn't know at the time,
right.
but and then later I found out he got most of his gun training and went over there. It was in Dodge City, and he's playing gaming.
Right. This is the leader,
Right.
our
yeah,
leader from the
right,
Dodge City.
Right.
area. Okay.
Talking about playing with some 16-year-old kid. They're in headphones. They're playing whatever gun.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat or
Yeah,
something
like that. And they're like, talking to each other, and I'm like, well, that's where you get your training from. And anyway, I tell
So
you.
I'm gonna assume that you know that this is probably somewhat dangerous, but you're not feeling a lot
Right.
of fear at this
If
point.
they found out that I was working for the FBI, I don't know. I could reason with most of them guys. They showed me enough. I could talk. Even the leader, I could talk to them. They tried to do some stupid, nothing really legal, just stupid stuff. And I'd like, why don't you do that? That's I could talk to them, and they'd pretty much listen to me. I didn't act like the boss. I was like, let them know that yeah, you're the boss, but hey, why don't you?
Probably makes a little more sense if you did this.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that's what Amy, the FBI, she was like, just be the voice of reason. They start to do something stupid, just be the, don't, give yourself up,
Right.
And I was always planning that if they did do something stupid, rob somebody or, if they got arrested, I'd get arrested and I'd get set in jail with them until the FBI came out. I wasn't going to go, hey, give me my lawyer.
I was
Don't
going to
give
say,
give me, and they
you couldn't say anything.
right.
You
I
wouldn't
mean,
be able to say anything.
I'd blow my cover,
Yeah.
and then I'd probably really be in trouble.
And they would probably lead you in there.
Yeah, that never happened. Fortunately, I mean, it could have, but they were always, watching out for law enforcement. The militias,
Did GCPD, Sheriff's Department have any clue
No,
about, or that you would know of?
no, the FBI, and a lot of times this is a big beef between local law enforcement and the FBI, but this is a big area out here, and when I'm out by myself, it ain't TV where they have the FBI is just a few blocks away, and so my safety was always a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And if they found out I was working with the FBI,
Right.
and some of the smaller towns, some of these people had people and relatives that were in local law enforcement.
Right.
Not that they were bad people or but they didn't want them to say, hey, cuz get on this militia, and then it could just it was more of a safety thing, and
Sure.
and they brought them in just before they made the arrest, which the Garden CPD and all everything, and they did a real good job of cleaning up the mess, after when everybody was scared, all the Somalians, and so, and they took some flack for that, for not bringing them in, but there's a reason.
It's the less people know, the less
and that's
yapping that goes on.
right.
So, tell me a little more about the inner workings of the of the militia, how often did you guys meet?
Okay, we usually 2 or 3 times a week we'd have.
Really?
I mean, no, I'm sorry, a month.
A month, okay.
Like a field training exercise. Sometimes, during the winter, maybe once.
Were there dues?
But no, there were no dues. Well, in some militias there were.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, some militias. This guy he was an idiot. He really was. He promoted his brother-in-law, who he's seen once. His brother-in-law seen a guy get killed in Dodge City, and he called the ambulance. So he promoted him for, bravery above and beyond the call of duty. And everybody in the militia was like, "Why didn't I get promoted? How's that?"
Right.
He just said he didn't even get out and help the guy. He just called the
Right.
which helped cops out.
Well, that's just nice to do.
Yeah, but and he showed up once or twice.
Right.
At, meetings. But they would also have called Zello. It's a phone app.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have to them it was real secure, and it's gotten a little bit secure. Once you have somebody recording the FBI
Right.
recording everything, so
Did they?
I
Or
did.
Can you say you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would with this group they'd like 3 or 4 times a week they'd get on a certain time and they'd talk about just complain about the same old thing, complain about the Somalians and
Mhm.
what they need to do, get a pig and get it, pork, they're Muslims, and
Yeah.
cut a head off and throw it in the mosque and stuff like this. It just
But they never did any of these.
no, and they it was talk. They didn't take actions to plan it out. If time would have went on, maybe they would.
Mhm.
I don't know, but I got the feeling that's what the FBI, and it was getting kind of boring too.
Yeah.
Until it was starting to get spring 2016. Well, actually, I think it was in February. We had a field training exercise out at Cimarron.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull up, and the leader, we met at the convenience store there, met the leader, and it's actually out by the river, but the sheriff has a key, and it's a public one. He was like, "I'm gonna go get the key to get into the shooting range." It was my idea to bring it. It was a gun safety one.
Right.
That we're because I was terrified how they were shooting us, or I'd accidentally get shot.
Right.
But anyway, he's like, "Oh yeah, there's a new guy showing up." And I go, "What's his name?" Patrick Stein. And I'm like, "Okay."
You never heard of Patrick Stein before this?
Never. And I'm supposed to be the vetting officer.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to know everybody, even though on Facebook they had to list all the names and everything.
And so just so everybody knows who's watching, Patrick Stein, this is when it starts to get
This is
pretty, this is when
this is where things
goes into
change.
overdrive.
This thing's where things flip.
Right.
Okay. So he comes and he's sitting there talking to me, and he's just complaining. And I was like, how'd you get in the militia? And he's like, I just sent him a Facebook found out that he was the leader.
And where's he from?
Wright, Kansas, just right next to Dodge City.
Right next to Dodge. Okay.
Yeah, his family had a small farm there.
Okay.
For years, and he was like, we talked. We sat there waiting, and he was talking about how this guy was the leader, was just an idiot, and he didn't. I mean, he had heard a lot about him, and
Right.
with other militias, and talked to other people in this militia that they just weren't that impressed with him, and I was like, I just got this feeling about him, and then and then anyway, we came back and we had the training thing and we could talk about gun safety and then afterwards just he was standing around, everybody's standing around talking and there.
Who's all there at this point?
There's like probably about 15 militia members showed up
Mm-hmm.
and
the leader is there.
Yeah.
And okay.
Patrick Stein and me and they some of the people left, but we're standing around and somebody brings up bombs and Patrick Stein's like, "Hey, I think I know where I can get some." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I could, I can't afford to use them. I know me, I can't buy them, but I got some connections. I got some family down."
And this is you saying that?
Yeah, this spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Like, because I was like, I can't buy them.
Right,
I
right.
had no idea what they. I didn't want to think I could buy them. If there was bombs, that's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I made up this spur of the moment. Hey, but I can't buy them. But I know I got some family members who are part of this this club, down in Oklahoma that kind of do some illegal stuff. They'd be interested in it. And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so anyway, it didn't work out. We looked to try to find the bomb where he said he could buy some.
Right.
And he had a name and
was it here in Kansas or?
yeah, like in Hayes.
Oh, okay.
But the FBI, they searched it too. I don't know if he had actually heard something like this, but anyway.
What's your initial impression of him for this first day?
When I was talking to him, he seemed, he talked about farming, economics, and everything. But when they started talking about Somalians, he was like, "It's not. Those. He's like, just gets irate, and he turns red, and he's like, those fucking cockroaches. That's what they are. They're just cockroaches, man.
Mm-hmm.
They're Muslims. You gotta. They just need their.
You don't have to worry about language here or anything.
They just need to blow their fucking heads off,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, of course, man, and
But at this point, he's just a guy talking.
right. But then I found out he's like, yeah, I've been doing surveillance over in Dodge City by himself. Like, really, man, by yourself? Like, yeah. And then he goes on this rant, and his face goes, he's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And I mean, when he goes off on the Muslim, not just Somalians, but Muslims, because they're going to overtake the country. And, I'm a Christian. Don't believe in Muslim,
Sure.
but, he was just like radical. And after the meeting's over, I go and debrief to the FBI, and I'm like, man, I think there's a new guy we need to follow. I think you just give up on this other group, keep an eye on them. And they were like, we were kind of thinking about the same thing, but who's this new guy? And they'd never heard of him. He didn't have, they run his name.
No sheet or anything.
Yeah. Well, I guess he had some priors a long time ago.
Right.
But he wasn't on, they weren't watching him or anything.
Right.
So that's where everything changed, flip-flops. From that point on, it wasn't, fun and games and laughing and making jokes, and it got real, when they talk about killing somebody or something, they meant to talk about killing something. But what happened was he, after that initial meeting,
Right.
they decided to have a surveillance in Garden City the next week,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a gun show. It was in February. They had these
Sure.
gun show on. So everybody was going to go to the gun show and then go do the surveillance at night in the apartments. He'd already that already told him about the mosque and the Somalians and how many are here, and
Yeah.
and you know
They have the little Somalian mall shopping
yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that right over in that
Well,
area.
we'd end up exchanging numbers and stuff. And what?
With Stein.
You're right. And he calls me up that day that we were supposed to go out at the that night, and a lot of people went to the gun show during the day and stuff. But,
Now, are they telling you to befriend him, or are you doing
no,
this
I'm
on
just
your own?
well, that's like he's going to be there. Yeah,
Yeah.
just keep an eye on it. You know, all he had so far was just his demeanor and what
Just
he
something off
said.
about the guy.
I could a gut feeling. You know, I could read pretty good. You know, probation. You know, people on probation and
Right.
people
Yeah.
lying to. I mean, you could tell.
You've been around this.
Yeah, and but like I say, he could be like a nice guy. If you talk about farm economics and all this stuff. Um, so anyway, that Saturday we were going to go do surveillance. He calls me up and he was like, "Man, won't you meet me and show me around during the daytime so I know where everything is?" He didn't know Garden City very good. I was like, "Oh, man, I don't want to do. I just had a bad feeling. I was like, man, I don't want to do this." So I call Amy up, and Robin, the other FBI agent, he was out of town. He's out of town or something. Well, he was in Dubai. But anyway, they're like, "Well, show him around. Just show him around." And all right, you know, I mean, I'm not forced to do any of this. I'm not getting
Right.
paid. They're not holding anything over my head.
Sure.
You know, but
Completely voluntary.
and I'm, you know, but then, you know, but I'm trying to help. There's things you can. I just had a bad feeling about him, and we agreed to meet at the Dollar General right on 8th
Right there.
Montgomery Street. And I pull my truck right next to him, and I get in the truck, get in his truck. I mean,
At this point, you're not wired, are you?
no,
No.
no. So we're sitting and it was a beautiful day in February. It was like 70 degrees that day. It had been real cold, and so they didn't work. The Somalians were. There used to be a path across that field.
Right.
I don't think there's any anymore. Where they'd walk to the store, the Somalian store. And, I mean, there was just, you know, hundreds of them out, you know, walking around, and they're, you know, dressed, whatever you call it. I don't.
In their garb.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. I know, but I just forget. But
And they're crossing that Mary Street back and forth.
Yeah,
And Mary Street, for people who don't know, Mary Street's a 4-lane, 40 miles an hour.
right, yeah.
So it's one of our busier
Exactly.
boulevards, I guess.
Yeah, and he's just like, "Oh shit! Look at all these fucking cockroaches out there. What the heck?" You know, and I was a little bit surprised, but not too surprised that he would, you know, be going off. But he was just going irate again, seeing so many of them. We had a bigger population than
In Dodge.
Dodge.
I was just going to ask
And
that. I didn't know what
a lot bigger population.
Yeah, I
And
didn't know what
they lived closer together.
Right.
So we're sitting there talking, and this is when it really got real. When I found out that things were really different. Two Somalian ladies were walking across the empty lot, you know,
Mhm.
from going to Dollar General.
Yeah.
And we're sitting right there in the truck, and I look at them, and I see them, and they're kind of looking. They just kind of glance over to us a little bit, and Patrick, he sees them, and he's like, "Look at those fucking raghead cockroach motherfucking bitches," and he's like, "I'm just gonna fucking pop him right now, take him out. He had a gun right next to his console in the truck.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, to me, everything's like slowed down. I mean, I like in slow motion.
Right.
And
And there's a different tone.
yeah, I mean,
to this.
he's serious. He's got the beans. He's got the gun. He says he can kill these freaking, drag-headed bitches. And I mean, he's talked like that before, but he didn't have a gun. They were looking at, they could hear him yell. I don't think they understood what he was saying, but he's slowly starting to pull his,
Right.
pull his gun up. And, I mean, I knew it was sitting there, and I like had like a split second. I was like, at the same time, I was like telling, hey, chill out. You're going to get the fucking cops calling.
Now, are you armed at this point?
Yes. And at the same time, I'm like made up my mind. I'm not going to let him kill these two innocent women because who they are and where they are and what they are, what they believe in, I mean, I'd never pulled a gun on anybody in my life. Had a gun pulled on me a few times, but
Right.
and I was like, as he was raising up, I was raising up. On my side right here, and I had the gun out, but at the same time, and this is like a second, but it seemed like longer. I was like, chill out, man, chill out, motherfuckers. There's gonna be cops coming. These ladies are walking by, looking. You see them yelling, and I thought I was gonna have to. I have nightmares now, like
You're gonna have to shoot
putting
him.
brains. His brain. I'm sitting right next to him. I'm brains all over me. I was gonna, I was gonna shoot him. I was not gonna let him do it, and it's not an easy thing to say. A lot of people can carry again. Well, I was gonna shoot that fucker. I'd shoot him. And, people all the time, and I've never said that in my life. And I'm not a killer. I don't want to kill
Right.
anybody. I've never, 'cause I've never had to pull my gun on anybody. It's just always for just in case.
Right.
So, and so that shook me up. I was like, I was able to get my gun back.
And he calmed down.
He got back, and he did calm down. He didn't like me telling him what to do, though.
Really?
Yeah, but he was like, all right. And so the women went on into Dollar General, and I'm like, but then he's ready for me to show him around. So we drive around, just basically, 5-10 minutes driving the apartments where they're at. He actually knew from Worth and what people, where the mosque was in the apartments, but he just went in the stores. They had two of them at that time.
Right.
He had just wanted to see him in the dark.
Yeah.
Or in the daylight, I'm sorry. So we go back, and he takes me back to Dollar General to so I can get my truck. And by that time, I calmed down. God gave me this ability to put on an act or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, but we were able to talk, start talking malicious stuff. But then he takes me in my truck, and he's like, I got something I want to tell you, man. I was like, what's that? I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know it would be pretty good. He's like, I'm actually in a different militia, the Kansas Security Force. 3%. They're all claim 3%, but
Mhm.
this was another statewide militia, a bigger, more organized one.
Right.
And he's like, I just joined this to recruit people that were starting up in Southwest Kansas, chapter. And he joined to steal people
Right.
from the militias. And he's like, I like you. I like because
Because you're smarter than all of them.
and he'd talk. he'd heard some things about me. You know, they'd call me Dangerous Dan. You know, as and that was just like they tried to use that against me in court. Oh, you're Dangerous Dan. But so he was like, but this is between me and you. You understand? And he takes his gun. He don't point it at me, but he just puts it on the console. You understand? Me and you. Nobody else. Nobody is to know about this. And I was like, yeah, okay. You know. And he goes, so what do you think? I was like, I don't know, man. Let me think about it. I'm getting kind of fed up with these idiots anyway. So, but let me think about it. You know. And I'm like, oh crap. things are getting real. Anyway, I went home. It was still light out. I went home, called Amy up and told her what happened. Like this guy, he's different. I don't think I can't control him like I did these other guys. I can't. He's dangerous, you know. I was like, I didn't want to go out with him that night because that's where he was gonna, start shooting, people walking around the Somalians. His deal was not so much Somalians, but because they were Muslim.
Right.
And man, I didn't want to go.
Is there any point you're looking to get out?
Not really. I mean, it was actually part of me was still interested. And I felt kind of a little bit of an obligation. I didn't want to let the FBI agents. They treat me good. We're kind of team friends,
Sure.
and that's it. We'd have coffee and talk about everything for hours.
Right.
And the FBI would get big rap at the bad rap at the top. But, these people, they were concerned about lives and the country, and
Right.
But I told Amy I don't want to go.
Yeah. Did they have any? They didn't have any record of this guy at
No,
all?
he was
No criminal record or anything?
he had when he was younger, he had a criminal record and some drug rehab and stuff like that. But he wasn't on.
He wasn't on
He
drugs
wasn't
right
on
at
the
this
radar.
point?
He wasn't on the radar.
Okay.
And so she's like, Dan, we need you. You need to go, and you need to ride with him. Because I was thinking, all right, I'll go, but I'll just ride.
You'll
with
go.
him.
They're like, no, you have to go.
I ain't trying to be brave,
Right.
I ain't trying. I wasn't trying to,
Yeah.
But she's like, we need you to. I didn't tell her I was,
Mm-hmm.
She probably read my mind and knew me good enough by then to. Cause we joke around and stuff,
Right.
At times.
Saying that maybe you're probably not going to ride with them, but
Yeah, but she was like, no.
she's making sure that you
You
knew.
need to. They couldn't force me to, but they're like, you have to.
Right.
If I would have wanted to walk away, I could have walked away.
Right.
But she's like, you don't understand. You're the only one. This is. By that time, 9 months had. 9 months went by. They confirmed there's so many things that I did. They didn't just take my word for it. They verified everything. They had me. They have ways to. No, you're telling the truth.
Right.
And, if I say something about another motion, they verify it.
Right.
They're talking and so I had the FBI's trust. I trusted them and I felt that they trusted me. So when I told them, they took it serious. It wasn't just like, yeah, right, just So I was like, all right, I'll ride with him. And we went out that night. Everybody met at the Dollar General store, and the leader of the militia, he's like pairing people up, 2 people to a car. Everybody's armed, He's like, Dan, you're riding with this other guy. And I was like, nah, I'm riding with Patrick. And Patrick's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And he just kind of took a liking to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't mutual.
Right.
But the leader didn't like it. Your honest, she was like, all right, whatever. You know, so we got in, we rode that night, and not much really happened that night, but he had night goggles where you could see. We parked across from the apartment, and you could see perfectly at night. I mean, the Somalians walking around, you could see all this. I mean, I was like, wow. I mean, they were very expensive.
Mhm.
He had his AR-15 in the back, which, I mean, everybody did.
Yeah.
It's not, well, with him, it concerned me because I thought he might actually use it. He actually had a night scope on the AR-15 also. He took it off there and let me look through it, and
Mhm.
I was like, man, that's cool. I need to get me one of these, you know. And so I was, looking at it, and I was like, same time shaking my hand, like, oh crap, you know. So the night ended. There was nothing really happened that night.
Yeah. How long were you guys there?
A couple of hours.
A couple hours.
Yeah, but they'd see people come out, they'd try to follow them, and same thing. I asked, well, if we catch him, what are we going to do to him? You know, I'm asking the leader, and he was like, no, we'll find out when they're like, just don't attract cops, you know. We don't want no law enforcement to do it. So I went back home, and I had called Amy again. It was probably midnight or something. And I mean, they take too many calls all hours of the night, you know. And I told her what was going on, and then we met in person again, on Monday. Like for some reason, normally we would have met in person that night, but for some reason, we couldn't do it until the next day. And so we met with them, and I found out that Robin Smith, the other FBI, that he was actually came to town and was driving around doing surveillance, so he was watching us in case this guy did do something. I had no idea that he was there.
Mhm. So, all right, well, we'll go ahead and take a break right here.
Sure.
And we'll pick up. I know there's a couple of questions I have for you. So
I told you, it's a long.
you know what? And it's fascinating. Don't ever think that this is boring. None of this is boring, and we haven't even gotten to the stuff I want to talk
Yeah,
about.
and that's why I said, like, the informant is nice and cushy,
Yeah.
but it just
I am riveted and fascinated, and I can't believe that you did this. So, and this is about to get big. So we're going to go ahead and take a little break, and we'll come back more with Danny Day from The Informant and from the book White Hot Hate. We'll be back in just a few minutes.